All right, people, we are live. Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. And of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House. Today, I have with me the guy that you all, if I have Terry on, you already know it's about to get real. You know, we last time I had him on, we were discussing how the Koch brothers influenced the Democratic Party, which, by the way, funny story. I actually had someone argue with me that the Koch brothers have always invested more in the Republican Party than the Democratic Party. And I had to kind of be like, no, that's not true. So, but, you know, because of the information Terry gave us. So once again, from the podcast voices, I have on Terry Bain. How you doing, Terry?
Hanging right in there. And hey, y'all, good to be back on the air here. We've been doing research, and you'll be getting some of what we've been working on at Voices, and kind of see why this rabbit hole has had me kind of covered up for a while now. So let's see what we can do with this. There's so much here.
Rabbit holes?
No, I really do not like rabbit holes. Not even a little bit.
I was telling Pasta and Fiorella because I had to learn the hard way a long time ago. I'm like, man, you gotta break up and break down these rabbit holes, because it's like Elmer Fudd chasing Bugs Bunny. Whenever you go down a Bugs Bunny rabbit hole, you could end up in California if you start out in North Carolina if you're not careful. And you know, I'm getting on their ass because they want to stay up for 2 days straight, calling me, just dropping information. I'm like, hold, double back. Can we break this down and introduce it piece by piece? That's what we got to do. So that's what we're going to do today. Today, we're going to talk about something that is extremely important and is absolutely related to the Neo-McCarthyist propaganda that we've been seeing, this consistent push for the military-industrial complex, the inexplicable increases in the military budget, despite the fact that our soldiers and the personnel don't really get to see any of that money. Trust me, there's literally a lot of military personnel on food stamps and welfare, despite our constant increases in the military budget. The talking points that are echoed from sometimes Fox News and CNN and MSNBC will echo the same talking points if it's circled around one of the agendas listed in NSC 68. So like, it's extremely important that we dive into this, because it is literally influencing the entirety of our political discourse right now, much more than what people think. And this is recently unclassified. It's only been unclassified since the late 1990s. So before I let Terry go into a deep dive and explain where it began, why, when, and all that good stuff, I'm going to give you the bullet points of what NSC 68 is. So it's a comprehensive and decisive program to win the peace and frustrate the Kremlin design should be so that it can be sustained for as long as necessary to achieve our national objectives. It would probably involve the development of an adequate political and economic framework for the achievement of our long-range objectives, a substantial increase in expenditures for military purposes, adequate to meet the requirements for the task listed in Section D1, a substantial increase in the military assistance programs designed to foster cooperative efforts, which will adequately and efficiently meet the requirements of our allies for the task referred to in Section D1. D1, I think. D1, I believe. In case you're wondering what that might sound like, think of it like this. Remember how Kaepernick got in a lot of trouble for kneeling, and we thought it was about criminal justice reform and all that good stuff? He was interrupting NSC 68. The military assistance programs, for example, the Pentagon paid the NFL to have the players come out, put their hand across their heart, and make sure they're standing for the flag. That's a new thing. That's within the last 15 years that they started that. And that's because the class of people that watch the NFL, which is rural, middle class, dominantly white America, is the military's number one recruiting prospect. So that's what a military assistance program will look like. These television shows that you see, the support the troops nonsense, military discounts wherever you go. These are the type of programs that we're talking about. That it's kind of like the faux patriotism thing, right? If as long as you love the troops, then we have no problem with you. The moment that you critique the military industrial complex, we'll automatically link it back to you hating the troops. Just ask Tulsi. They try to do this with her all the time, despite the fact that she's actually in the military. So number 4, some increases in economic assistance programs in recognition of the need to continue these programs until the purposes have been accomplished. The never ending, what do they always say? You start a program with the government, it never ends. They always say it's until, the mission has been accomplished. But if you start a new agency, it literally doesn't end. That's one of the main complaints actually conservatives have about new federal programs. A concerted attack on the problem of the United States balance of payments. That's along the lines of already approved by the president. I'm not really sure what that's referring to. Maybe Terry can give me some details on that when we get into the deep dive. Development of programs designed to build and maintain confidence among other peoples in our strength and resolution, and to wage overt psychological warfare calculated to encourage mass defections from the Soviet allegiance and to frustrate the Kremlin design in other ways. Now, that might look a little bit something about like what Mitch McConnell tried to tweet out the other day. Don't matter what the Democrats say, they're just dirty socialists. Like it was like they want Medicare for all because they're dirty socialists. He literally tweeted this out, not even joking. So that's what that would look like. Intensification of affirmative and timely measures and operations by covert means in the field of economic warfare and political and psychological warfare with a view of fomenting and supporting unrest and revolt in selected strategic satellite countries. Hong Kong, Brazil, Venezuela, Syria. Need I say more? Development of internal security and earlier back then, specifically that would have referred to Iran. It's almost like it was specifically created for Iran, to be honest with you. Number 8, development of internal security and civilian defense programs. Okay, this is kind of scary, y'all. It's scary. It's scary. I don't think they're called Blackwater anymore. They rebranded, but
twice, I think.
Yeah. So, but that's Blackwater, where they basically get to operate, or even ICE.
How about Department of Homeland Security? And ICE is part of Department of Homeland Security. Mm-hmm. But again, we're talking the document that you're reading is from 1950.
That's what's so scary about it.
Yes, exactly. It is. That's
what I want people to understand. Like, ICE and Blackwater, those are part of this, but this was created in 1950. And the point that we're trying to convey is that this is still being used, not just being used today, but it's dominantly driving the mindset of this country and dominantly driving the discourse around our politics today. So number 9 is improvement and intensification of intelligence activities. Well, they definitely succeeded in that. Not the improvement part, though. Not the improvement. It seems like it's getting regressively worse. So reduction, number 10 is reduction in federal expenditures. They failed at that. For purposes of, they got this part right. Reduction of federal expenditures for purposes other than defense and foreign assistance, if necessary, by the deferment of certain desirable programs. So reduction in expenditures. In other words, you can't have Medicare for all, but we can give unlimited money to Israel, though. Yeah. And we can spend all this money on the military industrial complex. So whenever there's an argument to be made that how can we have all this money to spend on the MIC and on foreign countries like Saudi Arabia and Israel, your argument is legitimate. They're just completely ignoring you because that's not part of the plan. That's how they can always find the money to pay them, but not us. And 11 would be increased taxes. And by the way, despite what the conservatives and the GOP will have you believe, that is a tenet that both parties have been following. They've just convinced the world that the Republicans want to reduce taxes on the middle class and the Democrats want to raise them on the middle class, when really across the board, I would say that pretty steadily both parties have done some. Some Republican states, in a lot of cases, have proportionally higher taxes than some states that would be considered quote unquote blue. So unless you're talking about California and New York, but that's a whole different question entirely, or discussion entirely. So Terry, Where did this start and why was it created?
The document that you're reading from was created in 1950, was not made declassified until 1975, which is when I was getting out of high school. So I'd never been exposed to that this happened. And this changes everything. And for 25 years, nobody even knows that everything has changed. So you're working off a complete fairy tale fable for 25 years that nobody even knows has happened. So let's go to point number 9 real fast here.
Okay. So
point number 9, please.
It says, so number 9 in that document says improvement and intensification of intelligence activities.
Oh, and then I got the wrong one. I wanted the one where it said we've got to get rid of, even though it's a good program, we just can't afford it because we got to go kill people.
Reduction of federal expenditures.
Okay.
Purposes other than defense or foreign.
There's the one. That's the one I needed right there. Okay, so let's start with Bernie Sanders, godless communist, socialist, fill in the blank for all of the things that they've made this guy sound like some kind of just stark raving radical, because of healthcare for all, right?
Yeah. Something that most Western countries, every Western country has except for us. Yeah.
Harry Truman, noted total radical Harry Truman, actually was running on this program, and we'll have a link off of that. Hopefully we can get up. But Medicare for all should have happened right at the end of World War II. Didn't happen. And why we didn't know that it didn't, what we didn't know was NSC 68 came in and said, no, we can't. Just because something is a desirable program does not mean that people are going to get it.
So who created NSC 68 though? Like who came up with this idea? Was it the Dulles brothers? It seems like this is always usually the Dulles brothers' fault.
I think this is before them. Truman is before Dulles brothers. So
who's the? No, I thought that one of them was his. I'm missing. So he was.
This is the guy who got defenestrated. I believe was in on this one. This is the administration before Truman and then Eisenhower. Okay. So Truman,
the administration right before Truman would have been FDR.
Yeah, and the guy that was Department of Defense, he fell out of a window, Forrestal, all the way back in like 47, 48. I can't remember off the top of my head, but what number we're talking about. But this is even before we get to the illustrious Dulles brothers who come in under Eisenhower.
So they held official offices under Eisenhower. But one of the Dulles brothers was literally Truman's main advisor, controlling everything in the background, the one who got him elected.
Investment bank. And they were investment bankers, lawyers for investment banks. And that's another one that's used to get gaslighted. But how many times are we seeing that pattern over and over and over again? And banking and insurance are the two biggest CIA cover-up. They're like, I'm not even joking. One of my friend's fathers was he's former CIA, was working for the insurance company that actually was the first company to ever insure a president. They insured both Lincoln and Jefferson. And I was like, that's a little suspect, don't you think? She's like, no. Actually, that is kind of weird because he was gone like every 6 months. Like, seriously. So like, those are the biggest CIA asset cover-up. Banks had spies way before they created CIA, which is a 1950s thing. Banks have always had spies. And then that goes back to a story which is a legend, but I don't know how well they've done on trying to dig it out. But the Rothschilds supposedly really magnified their fortune when the War of 1812. They knew who won the Battle of Waterloo before anybody else. The story.
And said that.
Said
that. Oh man, who they say? They said that. Who got with the Napoleon? Yes. They said he lost or won. They said he won already. And so everybody started selling them.
Selling short, yes.
Yeah.
And this is the British Stock Exchange, whatever that was called in 1812. But they literally magnified their fortune several times over by faking them out. Big fake out. Everybody knew, hey, watch these Rothschilds. Watch which way they're going.
He had his son.
Would that be Nathan?
Major country.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't remember. Yeah, they had them in every major country, and then after that, they started bankrolling every major war.
Yes.
Including World War I, by the way, if you did not know.
And if you want to get into, yes, we always used to gaslight this, and people would start rolling their eyes about we're going to get on the Rothschild story. But Lynn Rothschild is all over current events on Epstein story, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure why people are so
weird she's in there.
About mentioning that Rothschild. Well, no, I know. So I know now why people get weirded out when you mention the Rothschild, or they get uncomfortable, I should say. I didn't know that they were Jewish until. Well, I didn't know that they were Jewish like 2 years ago. So like when I'm doing basic research, I'm like, hold on, why is everybody so like acting weird about mentioning we can mention the Koch brothers, we can mention Soros, we can mention
Rockefeller. Throw Rockefeller in.
Rockefeller. Yeah, you can mention all these people, JP Morgan Chase, but you can't mention the Rothschild.
Well, let's go with Rothschild with Rockefeller, because I can talk about not liking Rockefeller, and he was a Baptist Sunday school preacher, and nobody ever calls me an anti-Baptist. But if we say anything about the Rothschilds, anti-Semitism.
Yeah, which is really
I don't
weird.
care what religion these guys are, and probably the religion they are is we don't even want to know what I think more Epstein. Real. Yeah, whatever it is.
That's the religion.
Yeah, that would be Baal worship, and that one goes way back. So anyway, and that's another long story we don't really have time for. But let's go back once again, because we're kind of short. This is just to open up this can of worms in here, and hopefully we can get the rest of the family here working on. There is so much here, and so much that needs to be understood. And frankly, I'm lost. I've been working on this story for 2 years, wandering around in circles with Elmer Fudd. Be very quiet. I'm lost again. Sorry, I do a horrible Elmer Fudd. But
Elmer Fudd does a horrible Elmer Fudd. But so with the reduction in spending on every government program, because remind you the big deal about this was if you put it in the 1950s. FDR had launched less than 10 years ago at that point, the New Deal. And remember, there was a huge fear that FDR was going to basically empower too many people, right? Well, a lot of people believe that World War II was allowed to unfold the way it did, specifically to stop the New Deal from, or like, for example, Medicare for all, or any type of major program like that, to empower people, give us economic prosperity. Like, it would take power out of the hands of the corporations who had created a number of organizations to try and combat everything FDR was introducing. It would take the power out of their hands and then put it in the hands of the people. And basically almost every single time this is about to happen over the last, century, there's a war that started.
Several centuries, I'm afraid, but easier to document it right now. So we'll have a link up, because there's a guy who was a pediatrician, I think, who does a much better job of trying to nail down this story than I can. But I just wanted to jump right in on here's a for instance for bullet point 10. We've just, it may be a good program, but we just can't afford it right now.
I want to move to the intensification of affirmative and timely measures and operations by covert means in the fields of economic warfare and political and psychological warfare, with the view of fomenting and supporting unrest and revolt in selected strategic satellite countries. Now, there is there was an example in the 1950s where this happened. Well, a lot of examples, but primarily it was Iran. That was like their main test subject, and the reason why is because we did it in a little bit in Afghanistan and a lot of the Middle East, but in ourselves. But Iran was at one point an economic ally, very similar to Israel. We were their main weapons trader, right? We sold them more weapons than any other country at that time.
Yeah, because they got a lot of oil, by the way.
Yeah, and in turn, we had a good relationship as far as our oil capacity was concerned.
There you go.
What happened was, and many of you all better know this story by now. Mossadegh was elected, was the first secular president of Iran, and he wanted to nationalize the oil supply. Well, you know what happens when you want to, have control over your own economy. We got to go free your country. We got to bring some freedom on your doorstep. And basically, the CIA lied. They put plants in Iran. They caused civil unrest. They distorted the conversation. They made it seem like Iran they made it seem like Mossadegh was this evil human being. Funny enough, he dressed a lot like Assad. Believe it or not, who is also secular as far as the way he governs. Yes. So, and because I remember the headline that is like very popular. It said, oil will once again flow to the west, which is like, what? Hold on, I thought this was because Mossadegh was some evil human being that we were trying to remove him. What does it have to do with oil? But once again, you don't see a lot of people at that time, because of the way information flowed or didn't,
again, this wasn't even declassified that they did this.
People were making the connection that, hold up, the conclusion doesn't match.
Economic warfare, that's a war crime. We hung people for economic warfare at the end of World War II. So here's a good reason to keep this classified, because it's a war crime. Yeah, and hopefully we can get some more of our researchers in the family here to help us flesh this out.
So that's 1954. Yeah, 1954 was when that happened.
The Dulles brothers were in on that one. They could execute this.
That's what I'm saying. The Dulles brothers have been in since, they haven't had official positions since the Truman administration, but the Dulles brothers were primarily behind Truman getting elected.
Well, they were
Republican, but they were working because Truman was a conservative Democrat by any means. Oh my God, the man was.
Oh, no, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. If we've got Bernie Sanders is a godless communist, but fill in the blank, and we've got Truman coming up with the same Medicare for all, healthcare.
Truman also used the N-word like he was starring in a Jay-Z rap song. So yeah, and he was from Missouri, and he was legit. Medicare for all, like you said, this is what the main talking point for Medicare for all. It's not a policy. It's common sense.
That's what we wanted. That's really what we're trying to do in just this very first show. We're just wanting people to take a look, because this is one bullet point from one piece of that document.
Well, I want to fast forward now, because fast forward to now.
How about Venezuela? Economic warfare.
That's what I'm going to say. Look at Venezuela, but primarily look at what we did in Libya. Okay. That's what I want to talk about, because the main story in Libya was what? Gaddafi was an evil human being who slaughtered his own people, which seems to be a pretty consistent theme when it comes to narratives that we're trying to establish to manufacture consent to go to war, or to legitimize whatever war crime we commit in a particular country. Here's the thing. People don't know, for whatever reason. No, I know why, but this is the reason why. But people don't know that Gaddafi was loved by his people, sincerely loved by his people, not only his people, but leaders of other nations in the region, whether they be from the Arab nations or from the African nations. People also don't know that Gaddafi was the elected leader of the African Union, not I'm a bully my way into it. Not I hate this, I'm just going to use my military to. No, he was the elected chairman of the African Union. Oh, by the way, a lot of people don't know the African Union exists. Yes, it does exist. And actually, it's probably better than the European Union in a lot of ways, which, once again, you're not allowed to learn about the African Union, because that would allow the humanization of Africans. And God knows we can't have that if we want to run covert operations in Somalia and Sudan and all these other countries. So what people also don't know is that the main place where terrorists came from into Libya was from Chad. That is who Gaddafi was primarily fighting. They don't know also that the leader of Chad at the time was one of ours. We put him there. We installed him and we said, hey, wreak havoc in the region because we need to convince people that Libya is a shithole, that Gaddafi is an evil tyrant. And the only way we can do that is by having a constant war being waged. Does that sound familiar? Oh, yeah, it literally is everywhere. Every time we go somewhere, it's the same narrative over and over again. Once again, and I want to be very clear about this. If you ever hear a narrative where only one person's name is brought up, you should immediately begin to question that official narrative. Why do I say that? Because even as we're speaking right now, I can't even remember the damn name of the leader of Chad. I can remember everything about him, but I can't remember as far as his involvement in Libya, but I can't remember his name. And
no, you're a good one. I don't remember that either. No,
but it's of course by design.
Yes.
Because if you look up his name, you look up his affiliations. You look up his affiliations, you'll find out he's affiliated with America. And if you find out he's affiliated with America, you might begin to question the official narrative. Like for example, this is exactly what happened in Venezuela. To Terry's point, all we hear is Maduro's evil. Maduro. Before that, Chavez. Or in Cuba, Fidel. And the big change from the past, where everybody did believe that Chavez was evil, and that and for a while people thought that Maduro was the same as Chavez, quote unquote, being a bad, nasty little dirty communist, was when we could look up who they were trying to install, which was Juan Guaido. Just knowing who Juan Guaido was, his affiliations with the Koch brothers, him being educated in America's system, the fact that he had only been a congressman or a legislator, in Venezuela for like 6 or 7 months.
Did he do a hitch as an investment banker too? Because this is going to be another recurring theme over and over.
He's actually super young. He's like 34, 35 years old. He didn't do a stint as an investment banker, but he did, however, like work with them. Like he was associated with a lot of ours. So like being able to look up his name, his associations, and how tied he was to the United States elites and the political elites, it helped better frame the conversation in Venezuela, and it completely destroyed any legitimate effort to try and overthrow Maduro. So what they achieved in Libya couldn't be achieved in Venezuela, like because of something as simple as knowing who the opposition's name is. If people would have known who Batista was in Cuba, for example, we wouldn't be talking about Fidel Castro in the way we talk about him today. Our primary focus would have been on how bad Batista was, and the fact that he actually was a communist as well, and the fact that he was once again in I
didn't know that one.
Yeah, he was in the United States pockets. He was the one who was running the sugar cartel down there. We were so invested in Cuba's sugarcane industry that when Spain tried to come back and invade Cuba again, we went down there and handed them their ass for it. We went back to defend Cuba, and it was around the same time. Funny enough, in the 50s.
one of those points is about balance of trade, and everybody's eyes blank over when we get into economics. And there's a good reason for that. It's because most of the economics that we've all been taught in school, a lot of it's crap. It doesn't work.
Oh, a lot of it. I would say literally the original premise is crap.
Well, let's go to I don't remember which number that one was, and people can look it up because we'll have we're kicking this up. For balance of trade thing.
Warfare. Oh, yes. Please break down the balance of trade.
Yeah. See, that one is that one just kind of, there's so much in here. We just blew past that one, but let's go back just.
We're going to definitely go. Like I said, we're going to have several different segments about this, so we can.
Well, but the balance of trade is that when you've got, say, the Opium Wars. No, not ours. This would be the Great Britain Opium Wars. That they really were running. China said, "We won't take anything but gold." Okay.
Number 5. That's what it was.
Oh, thank you.
Concerted attack on the problem of the United States balance of payments.
Yeah, we'll come back. There's only certain number of ways you can do anything about that, and we'll throw a link up, and we're going to try to do more detail on this. Again, we're just opening the lid on this stinking piece of crud. But back to China and the Opium Wars. China, nothing but gold. Okay. We don't want anything but gold. We've seen your little tricks before. We're talking the 1800s here. 1700s. So we were running out of gold to give to China. That's balance of trade. They have something we want, and opposite of that, they didn't have anything that we had, so there was nowhere to trade until we got them hooked on opium. And this one is not a conspiracy theory. This is in your history book. Google Opium Wars. That's plural, wars. And the ones that you'll see are the ones from the 1800s, Great Britain. It's still going on, people. Afghanistan. And we just can't seem to get out of Afghanistan for some strange reason.
And people think that we just started in Afghanistan. People think that we just arrived there. No. Why do you think we put the Taliban in charge? We put the Taliban, like, we are the ones who put them in charge. Like, people don't know that. And
Great Britain had already had an Afghanistan war. When if you ever saw that movie, Sherlock Holmes, the doctor.
The newest one?
Yeah, yes, please. It did a really good job, by the way, of showing that the way it was written. The doctor should have been limping because he got his leg blown off in Afghanistan.
Yeah, he is Afghanistan. Limping. He has his cane and everything, and he actually hits people with it.
So that was his Afghanistan war. And what they were doing in Afghanistan war, when you look up Opium Wars, guess what Afghanistan had and has? People can look that one up for themselves.
Yeah, so that was something I actually knew in middle school, believe it or not.
That's balance of trade. So just that one little point that we just blew through is, holy cow. Now, how many wars have we just talked about, past, present, future, off of just that one point? Yeah. And that's what we're going to try to spend some time with the whole family here doing some research on, because there's so much in here. I'm 62 years old. I don't have time single-handedly. Every place I look in here is another dirty, stinking thing I don't want to pull out. It makes me sick. Yeah, so I need some of y'all. I need reinforcements.
Back on that point for the balance of trade. So basically, everybody, how kind of all of us who've ever had like a credit card or a loan, we look at the United States like, how the hell are they just able to just keep taking all these loans, and they just seem to keep spending money even though we owe a lot of people a lot of money. One of the ways to do that, or one of the reasons we're allowed to do that, I should say, is because we control the petrodollar. It's the petrodollar. Everybody at this point, I think, should know that, but that's the scariest part about the idea of transitioning to renewables. Because I used to always ask myself, I'm like, okay, so from an economic standpoint, transitioning to renewables would, just completely boost our economy to something we haven't seen since the Industrial Revolution. So why the hell are they fighting so hard to stop it from happening? You have to have this. Everybody, I think, has that question. And we like to just simplify. Oh, money, it's money. It's not that simple. If it was just money, once again, if money was the incentive, then boosting the economy by transitioning to renewables would be the logical conclusion. But that's not the logical conclusion, because we do have a lot of money. We do have a balance. We have a ledger, and the way that we control that ledger and we're allowed to keep doing what we do is by the petrodollar, and making sure that we control what is now considered the dominant resource around the world, which is
current events. Yesterday, which two countries said no U.S. dollar?
Yeah, India and
yesterday,
Russia, which is a big deal that people continue to ignore. Right.
Okay.
So
that's balance of trade. They know that those American dollars are just being printed, and they're not worth anything anymore. So give us something. We need something that is worth something.
Well, they're worth something, and the reason why is because of the petrodollar, but it may not. And the funniest part is here's what was the biggest clue, right?
Petro. You said petro.
Well, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, like, the biggest clue for me was that the wars were how we were monetizing our currency sovereignty, was when I found out that because of fracking and Obama, thanks Obama, we were producing 93% of our oil. I'm like, hold on. So if we're producing 93% of our oil, why do we need everybody else's oil? Oh, because it's not about the amount of oil. We just don't want anybody else to be able to sell any oil. That's literally the reason. That was it for me. I was like, hold on. So for Iran, and you look up Iran, you find out that a couple of years ago, they were about to be the #1 exporter of oil in the world. and you look up and you start to see this pattern. The Gaddafi was about to use the gold dinar by combining oil and gold into one currency, making it double back.
There you go. That was why I wanted to double us back to point number, and I'm lost again. But whichever balance of trade thing number, we threatened how you do money. Because at the end of World War II, there was this thing called Bretton Woods. And we've all been taught, oh, don't pay attention to that. Because Keynesian. But what does America export now? We used to manufacture, American-made used to mean something. What do we manufacture now? Raytheon.
Weapons. And look, what's so bad about that is that we still...
That's military Keynesianism.
We still export the manufacturing for our weapons to China.
That's military.
That's so sad about it. Like, we have China. What's going to happen if we try to go to war with China? China's like, okay, fine, we're just not going to make any more weapons for you. So how about that?
Here's one that's sad. The next war, World War II, was fought in the air. There was this theory of, if I have the land and he controls the ocean, who's going to win? Well, Napoleon found out the hard way. The guys that got the Navy. Sorry, Army. Watch it. Don't mess with the Navy. Okay, so that's now we're 1812. Yes, right down there at Norfolk. So that's old hat. Now that World War II, we find out, okay, well, if one's got the land, one's got the sea, and they don't have the air power, who's going to win that one? Well, take a look how many aircraft carriers you see out there. So as we've learned from that point, air power, okay? And then that was ancient history, World War II. But space power is where it's at now. If you control the high ground, you win. First thing that they should have been teaching you.
And I want to be very clear about something, people. It is no coincidence. Like, people wanted to laugh when he talked about when Trump talked about the Space Force program, and everybody wanted to laugh and like, ha ha ha, that's cute. And I'm like, no, y'all don't understand Trump. If Trump has a Freudian slip, you better be listening, because it's a big deal. Right, when we're talking about what remember what he said about Pakistan 2 years ago? No, you don't remember, because it literally went innocuous and nobody talked about it. He tweeted out in 2017 that he had a significant, like, he was like, oh, we're about to we're having a problem with Pakistan. If they keep this up, we're going to put them on the terrorist watch list, and da, 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 da. And it's like, hold on, how is Pakistan not already on the terrorist watch list when everybody in the world knows that they harbor terrorists? And then you do your research, you find out, of course, that, like most people know, Pakistan has always been one of ours. It's to keep it simple. They've been one of ours. And what people don't know is that Imran Khan, the prime minister of Afghanistan, who recently, I think he's maybe only a couple of years that he's been the prime minister. Imran Khan has been speaking out against the terrorism originating in Pakistan as the prime minister more than what people may think. But here's a problem. He doesn't control Pakistan. The military does, because we give the power to the military so that just in case someone like Imran Khan comes in, he can't change anything. So the thing was, Imran Khan got elected. Trump had an issue with him, and we've been signaling problems with Imran Khan this entire time. I encourage you all, go look up some of the statements from Imran Khan regarding Pakistan and the terrorism that's been taking place, not only in parts of Pakistan, but also in Kashmir, because he's actually talked about it. And that actually helps people correctly understand and frame why Modi was given the green light by the people of Kashmir to come in, because, hey, they're like, we can't protect ourselves. Nobody else cares about us. We can't trust Pakistan's military to protect us because, they're in the pockets of the United States. And so that's why Modi felt like he had the green light to go in. But if you looked up, if anybody paid attention to what Trump said, they would have started immediately like looking up, well, why does he have this problem with Pakistan all of a sudden when the United States really has never had a problem with Pakistan? And then you would have done the deep dive in figuring out, because of who got elected. Well, why does he have a problem with him? And then you do that once again, the rabbit hole, and you find out that once again, things are you can't ignore things that Trump says or really anybody says.
Convive. We did that one of our shows. You and I were talking about. Isn't it an amazing how much Convive or Confifi or however it would have been pronounced sounds like a Honduras Convive, which hid the largest non-Middle East military buildup this century.
Yep. So
they can hide a whole war.
I want to cut it here because like I said,
we've got lots more.
Yeah. Like I said, this subject is crazy. So today we covered the increase.
This is intro.
Yeah, the reduction of the federal expenditures. We talked about the improvement in No, actually, we didn't get to that part yet.
No, but, all we did was just try to get people to look.
So 7, we talked about intensification of affirmative and timely measures and operations by covert means for economic warfare, and we talked about the balance. So the next time we're going to talk about maybe 2 to 3 more topics. And
hopefully we can get our researchers to do this point by point and really unpack it point by point by point.
Oh yeah, we can go. Yeah, we got, like I said, there's a lot of stuff to discuss here. So we're going to try to do as much as we can to present it to you in a way that you can relate the information to things that are happening today.
Well, here's a homework assignment. When we were talking about is Pakistan an ally? I think, did they show in the movie Black Hawk Down, the end of the movie when they get rescued? I think that was a Pakistani armored column that got up
Pakistan
to go.
was an ally though, or
I think that was who. I believe that's who cut them out. That was an airborne. If you've got to get reinforcements up to airborne, and I believe the reinforcement came up with an armored cavalry unit from Pakistan. I'm not positive about that. Well, let's see if I can find a link on that.
Pakistan being a quote unquote ally militarily and economically is the only thing that's kept them off the terrorist sponsor. The state.
We've always been at war with Oceania. We're never at war with Oceania. Here we go again. It's the same pattern over and over and over and over and over. So well, that's why
you got to be careful, people. Like I said, you gotta look at like what they don't say is just as important as what they say. Whenever we were talking about that entire region, people don't know Pakistan used to be part of India. People don't know that Kashmir technically is still part of India, right? So why is it that you only hear Modi? Why is it you only hear India, but literally no one has mentioned Pakistan?
I think we're going to find a Dulles involved in that specific point too, and hopefully somebody will remind us that we can do that show along with all the other things we're going to unpack in here.
You can't ever do anything between the years of 1945 and 1970 without mentioning the Dulles brothers.
They negotiated the peace treaties at the end of World War II. I'm doing this from memory.
Negotiating? Is that what you mean literally lying to Truman and saying there was no Yalta Conference? Stalin is lying to you. Let's start the Cold War. You mean like
I think there's where Korea starts. I believe there was a decision made that when the Japanese came out of Korea, we weren't going to occupy it. We were just going to have it as a country, and then there was a disagreement, and that's where NSC, what number are we on? NSC 68 actually got passed because the godless communists came across the border, and we need to do a show on that one too. But it was already negotiated ahead of time at the end of World War II. Everybody knew they were going to have to do something because the Japanese were coming out, and something was going to have to be done to fill that power vacuum.
Yeah. All right. So we could literally talk about this for the next 8 hours and still not even put a dent in it. So we're going to cut it off here. We're gonna reconvene. We're probably trying to reconvene next week.
Hopefully,
we're gonna try to do another deep dive into a few more bullet points and take it from there. And so
this turns my stomach. So if we can get some more researchers here on this, it would really help. I'm just, I'm 62. Sure, notice this white hair. I don't have enough time to unpack this. We've got to get reinforcements.
We have the best, not only do we have the best supporters on this channel, I can honestly say we got like the best researchers, because the stuff that the MCSC family sends me sometimes, I'm like, how the hell did you even find this? And I mean, look, one of our supporters was the one who broke the news that a lot of the TYT bigwigs, Anna and Jank, belong to the same agency that literally emailed Tulsi and said that they were going to put the hammer down on her for leaving the DNC. And all the people who belong to that agency are literally putting the hammer down, quote unquote, like they said they would. So that was one of our supporters did that research and found that out. And so it's like I said, we have some of the best supporters and the best researchers, that you can get as far as independent journalism is concerned. So I greatly appreciate you all. But other than that, peeps, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa and Sukasa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.